course, with jihad in its purest form, the bin Ladenist and Taliban lot, and with the post-Stalinism, the sort of praised Kim Il-sungist world.
What's the solution to the fact that this regime has nuclear weapons and may do a nuclear test in the near future and is unlikely to stop their program?
All three of the axis of evil countries, which
Iran,
until your guest this
North
evening,
Korea.
Came on, he's now joined me as a second one to have been to all three. To Iran,
Iran, North Korea. Yeah,
all three of them have tried
the
to
harder one is North
project their failed states, their failed regimes, and their discredited ideologies. They've tried to postpone the reckoning of this by buying themselves insurance through weapons of mass destruction, one way or another. One of them's now been disarmed. I know a lot of people complain about this and say he was disarmed already, but in fact, we didn't know he was disarmed until he was removed, and I think both things were good to certify.
Notwithstanding how bad it's going and the strength of the insurgency and all of that.
Well, knowing how bad the enemy is isn't an undermining of my position. I mean,
nothing has caused...
Now that you can see Baathism and jihadism linked arms, doing indiscriminate mass murder and sabotage, I mean, do you think that proves me wrong? I think it proves surely that we were right to say that this was a necessary confrontation. What are we to do now? Walk away from that? No. We've seen what we feared, which was the alliance of Baathism and jihadism. And don't let anyone tell you, Charlie, that
But is the alliance, is that alliance because we went there, or was that alliance that came as a result of our
pre-existing. Mr. Zarqawi was in Iraq long before the invasion. He'd come from Afghanistan, from the next camp over to Osama bin Laden, who he now considers his leader. Yeah, right. He's not an Iraqi. I know Iraq well enough to tell you this much. In those days, no one of that importance could get into the country or out of it without permission of the leadership.
Well, how important was he at that time?
Very.
He was?
Well, the Saudis, if you remember...
Zarqawi was that important when he came in for...
The Saudis and the Pakistanis were expelling people like him. Even the Saudis and the Pakistanis after 9/11. Iraq was inviting them in. What does that tell you? Iraq, as it had done the man, Mr. Yassin, who'd blown up the World Trade Center in 1993. We're still looking for on Iraqi soil, where he's been for 12 years after trying to destroy our downtown. Come on.
You have been all your life engaged in disputation since Oxford. Now you come to
before Oxford.
Before Oxford, okay. You come to America and have been writing about culture and a series of lots of essays about culture, including the famous foreword to the, I guess it was the 50th anniversary of Augie March. Was that when you wrote about that? And yes. A lot of other things. And you have been in the forefront of sort of supporting the administration in terms of Iraq and in terms of the regimes like Saddam Hussein. What's the operative philosophy? Because you have said some interesting things about globalization, which is about production, needs to be matched in terms of a certain kind of standard of decency and behavior. Help me understand the ideological or intellectual underpinnings and the architecture for how you make decisions about policy.
Well, you promise you won't think it's opportunist of me because I have a book
coming out on this.
But the word Jeffersonian wouldn't be too bad for this. In other words, the Russian Revolution is over. It's no longer a model for anybody. The Chinese Revolution is over. No longer a model for anybody. Right. The Cuban Revolution is...
But the Chinese Revolution turned out all right.
On the vine. Well, it's only by mutating into its opposite, exactly. Metamorphosing. Yeah. Cuban Revolution is dead in the water, as we all know. I wouldn't say that the ideas of 1789 in France were by any means gone, but Jefferson helped to write the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of France, too.
Influenced by the French Revolution.
And the American... In effect, therefore, the only revolution which has a chance of being worth emulating, worth studying for other countries was pluralism, religious freedom, separation, secular separation, and the right of anyone to try and make a living their own way and worship their own God. May not sound very grandiose, but it's not bad, and will serve. And most of the countries I've been to in the past few years would all be taking a step up if they moved in that direction, and most of them know it. So to discover that, after it's all shaken out, that the American Revolution still has some life and purpose and meat and muscle in it, is, I think, a rather inspiring thing for someone of my age. I didn't think I'd have another chance to take part in a revolution. And now, in fact, the United States is involved in a combat that is Jeffersonian around the world.
But there's interesting splits
Well,
about
could be if
people.
it chose
But the reason I want you to articulate, a lot of people, I mean, you know, you see a whole range of people who are intelligent and come to this show a lot. People like Ignatieff, people like, he comes less, but David Reif, and a whole range of people, you know, who are engaged by Sarajevo and engaged by Bosnia and Kosovo, and have been engaged, coming and splitting on the question of Iraq.
Sure.
They were almost in unity on Bosnia and Kosovo.
And Michael Ignatieff, certainly for a while at least, on Iraq. I'm not sure what his position now is.
I think his position didn't go as the way he thought he wanted it to go, well, but I think he still
sure didn't go the way I wanted it to either.
Right.
But the principle is this: they thought it was optional. They also said that I thought it was optional. In other words, it was a war of choice.
Right.
I thought, but both those points were mistaken. We were in fact responsible for Iraq already. It was broken, and we had inherited it, and it did belong to us.
Now, are you having more fun with politics today, or more driven to write about politics than you are about our culture and literature?
I'd still rather write about literature and culture, because I think this is a war about civilization. It may not be a clash
you're not quite
of
there.
Civilizations, but it's a clash about civilization, and so and it's a clash with people who think you only need one book.
Okay, but define me what the clash is for me one more time, even though we've talked around it all day. This is a war.
It's a civil war within the Muslim world, where those who believe in the restoration of the Islamic Caliphate and the imposition of Sharia law and the reading of only one book, in fact the memorizing of only one book as a mantra, want to enslave their Muslim brothers and sisters and make them all...
But that's their fight, isn't it? That's not our fight.
No, because we might conceivably want to be neutral about this, though I don't think we could be for long, but those who want the jihadist Sharia victory have decided that they'll make their point by exporting the war to our soil, which they have dramatically done.
Sure, on 9/11.
And so we now have, I think, a consumingly strong interest in making certain that the civil war within Islam, actually there's more than one, but the civil wars within Islam are not won.
Yeah.
The victors are not
one of the central
criticisms.
One of the central criticisms is that, you know, for the lack of a better word, and I wish there was a better word, those who, that civil war, one side has not done a very good job of fighting its war. That is the side who's fighting against the fundamentalists and the radicals. They have not done a good job in making their battle.
No, they have not.
So-called moderates.
They have not, though there are forces who've put up a pretty brave fight. I mean, the Kurdish militia in northern Iraq, for example, are all Sunni, but they've been resisting jihadism as well as Baathism for a long time. They'll never agree to live under it. It's impossible to subdue them. There are numerous secular forces in the rest of the region, and there are people we haven't heard about yet who will find their voice, and I think even if they don't want to say thank you, they'll have to admit that the United States intervention was a help to them.
But are you and Amos best friends?
He's not my best friend, he's my only friend.
He's your only friend?
Yeah. I have no only acquaintances. Want to be friends?
No, I'm fascinated by this. Define it for me, then.
Well,
why is it different?
Someone who I really love and would consider laying down the life for doesn't come along very often. Someone who knows everything about you, who understands everything you say. I mean, you're asking because we had a quarrel over Stalin.
No, I'm not. I'm really asking because I like him a lot and like you a lot.
He's a great guy.
That's why. Were you classmates at all?
No, we weren't actually. We didn't meet till we were in London in the early 70s.
The whole group of...
I met him at Oxford briefly, but he was a year behind me, in fact.
Christopher Hitchens, Thomas Jefferson. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.